Hello, welcome, Synthwavers. Very happy to be here with you today. In this session, it's all going to be about demystifying the chord progressions that TimeCop1983 uses in his tracks. By the way, I'm Alonzo from synthwavedojo.com, and as I was saying, we're going to analyze chord progressions by TimeCop1983 with the intention of gaining insight into how he makes his music, so we can reverse engineer and use those techniques in our music as well, so we can become better producers. And by the way, reverse engineering, copying, and cloning from successful producers, from producers you like, especially when you're a beginner, it's a great way to speed up your skills, your acquiring of skills, and developing your natural abilities and your musical abilities. So cool. Alrighty, I see you have Alexander, Synthwave Dojo members in the house. Hey, Wolfston. Thank you very much for being here, guys. I'm sorry that you feel sick. But, alright, let's get right into it. Oh, before I forget, if you haven't done so already, feel free to visit synthwavedojo.com/events, where you can find our events calendar, all our upcoming masterclasses, group learning events, live streams such as this, both on and off YouTube. And from there, you can sign up to receive email alerts every time that we add a new session or a new learning opportunity, as well as adding any events into your calendar of choice directly from that webpage. So make sure to visit it often. Cool. Alrighty. Let's get right into it. Awesome. So this is what we're going to be analyzing or working with today. What you see here in front of you is a simple spreadsheet with a table containing, I think 10 or 12 TimeCop1983, 12 TimeCop tracks that I just randomly picked from Spotify or YouTube, wherever. And I analyzed them and wrote down a few of the details, of the musical details, and these are the things that we're going to look into today. So one of the things that I want to do is see what insights we can gather in terms of the tempo that he uses, the keys. What about his chord progression structures? Does he use cadences? Does he use displaced cadences or chord leading? So it's a way of tying all of the theory that I've been covering for the past couple of weeks regarding chord progressions, chord leading, charts, cadences, and all of that, and seeing how any of this could be applied in the wild by successful producers, and kind of figure out if TimeCop is using any of this, and again, if he is or he isn't, what can we learn to become better producers ourselves? So right here, we have the chord leading charts, the chart number 1 and chart number 2, that they are available in the Synthwave Dojo Synthwave Composers tool, free PDF that you can get at synthwavedojo.com/downloads for free. And as we go along the way, I will be checking the chat and see if there are any questions or comments. Hey, Blue Eye Cat, thank you very much for being here. Awesome. Okay, so here are the tracks that I analyzed. Here's the tempo of all these tracks. Here are the keys. Here's the key type, whether it's a major or minor. Here's the specific progression. This is a Nashville number system that I will explain in a couple of seconds or minutes. These are the number of bars in a progression. And here I'm going to go through each progression and start analyzing a couple of things. So I will fill this out as we go along. And here's just an indication of the bass line. For example, here the bass line starts on E, and then it ascends to E sharp, to F sharp, then it ascends to G sharp and comes back down to F sharp. So these arrows just point the direction of where you're going in terms of the bass line. This is, I'm not gonna focus on this for now. It was just a way for me to figure out if where he was starting his progressions, and where if he tends to go upward or go downward, because depending on your progression, you could go either way. But in any case, I'm not gonna focus on that today. So let's get into it. In terms of tempo, let me sort this by smallest to largest So these 12 random tracks that I picked, you see that 6 of them are under 100 BPM, and the other half, exactly the other half, 6 are over 115 BPM. So one thing we can definitely say is that, at least in the context of TimeCop1983's Synthwave, he uses, I think, a broad range of 70 BPM, which is very slow, and 130, I think that's kind of the fast-ish or fastest ranges you want to go into. Upwards from 130, like 140, 150, that could be too fast depending on what you're trying to do. So in any case, TimeCop uses or works in a broad range of tempos. If I could type, that would be awesome. All right, again, this helps us frame our work. So if we want to go for a similar style, I could use any tempo between 70 and 130. It strikes me as odd that there are no tracks between 100 and 115. Definitely it has to be because this wasn't a statistical sample, like, well done. If I had analyzed 100 tracks, probably this could change a little bit. But in any case, this is what we have, and let's go by this. Cool. So tempos between 70 to 130 BPM. That's useful. If we want to make synthwave, focusing on that, this range, that's cool. Okay. What else can we say then about keys? And again, I'm gonna just do some really simple data analysis. By sorting stuff, it can help us show patterns and show tendencies. So here, what we can see is that he uses the C major scale twice. He uses, I would say, D-related scales or keys 4 times. So one time it's D natural major, another time it's D natural minor, D sharp minor. So in any case, he tends to use D a lot in any of their variances or flavors. He used an E-related key twice, or actually 3 times, E, E flat, E minor, F twice, F major, F minor, and just 1 time G sharp minor. Again, if this were a broader statistical analysis, we may see other keys. But for now, one of the things that we could say is that he tends to favor D. He tends to favor D and E, and to a lesser degree, I would say C and F in their flavors and variants. Okay, why doesn't he use, let's say, G flat or A flat or B? Who knows? Maybe it has to do with the bass notes of your track. Let me take a step back. When you're an instrumentalist, for example, let's say you play guitar or you play the piano. In the case of guitar, you will tend to write and favor certain keys more than others because they're easier to play on a guitar. You tend to use keys where you have a lot of open strings. So you will tend to favor stuff like C major, G major, E major, A major, and their minor key counterparts, which are the relative minor keys. However, on the piano, you tend to favor certain things. If you are a keyboard or a piano player, you may tend to use keys that have flats, so it's different from what a guitar player would do. If you play, let's say, what else? Maybe not bass, but I don't know, if you're a sax player, then you would tend to favor certain keys because they're easier to play on the sax. However, if you're a synthwave producer, and if you're not necessarily playing all the stuff that you're writing or producing, then to you, it doesn't make a difference whether you use G minor or F sharp minor or G flat minor. F sharp minor and G flat minor are the same thing, just are inharmonic keys. It doesn't make a difference. It's just the same. You're just plugging in notes as opposed to playing them live on stage or improvising, right? So what would guide your decision into using one minor key or the other? Then to me, it has to do with the bass pattern. And it has to do something with this, but I'm not gonna get into that. So for example, if you have a track, let's say, that is in a minor key, and if you want to start your pattern on that minor tonic, then it would be great that the that you would use the lowest note that you can use with your bass patch and have it sound powerful. So probably E1 is one of the lowest bass notes that you can play that sounds good. So that would give you some direction into using an E minor scale versus an A minor scale or something else, right? You consider the notes in your bass line and try to use those notes the lowest that you can while they still sound good. So that would swing the decision of using one key versus the other, right? Thinking about the bass notes and the lowest notes that you can get away with that still sound good. All right, cool. In any case, we saw that he tends to favor D, E, C, F, and their variants. What can we say about the progressions? When we look at chord names like this, it's very hard to do any kind of analysis. We see C sharp major, C, A minor. It really, there's nothing apparent if we just look at the raw chord names. So this is why it's useful to translate the chords into Roman numerals, which is called Roman numeral analysis, part of formal music theory. But here, I'm just going to use something slightly different, which is the Nashville numbering system or Nashville number system. So it's kind of similar to Roman numerals. We're still assigning a number to each of the chord degrees. So for example, in C major, the tonic chord or the 1 chord, here is the Arabic number 1 as opposed to the Roman numeral capital I, okay? And so on and so forth. So the next degree or the next chord would be 2, the third chord would be 3, the fourth chord 4, and so on and so forth. Now, another difference is that in Nashville numbering system, if you see a number by itself, for example, 1 or 4, this means this is a major chord. So this is the 4 chord of whatever key you're playing in. But if you see a minus sign to the right, then it means that this is a minor chord, okay? So fairly easy to understand. The 1 chord or just one number is a major chord. A number with a minus sign or symbol, it denotes that's a minor chord. Cool. And another thing that I'm using here is when we talk about major and minor keys and we do proper numeral analysis, a major key, we will start on the capital I, then the next chord is going to be a minor chord, which would be lowercase I. But in this Nashville number system, instead of looking at the major keys and the minor keys differently by starting our count in a different place, right? We're only going to count the 1 chord is always going to be the tonic of the key. So regardless whether it's a minor key, the 1 is always going to be the tonic of the major key. And that's going to help us not have to translate in our mind. If I tell you a 1-4-5 chord progression in a major key, for example, in C, that would be C, F, G. But if we're looking at a minor key and I tell you the 1-4-5 progression, that would be A minor, D minor, and E minor. Okay. But if I use the same progression that I gave you in a minor key, in a major key, 1-4-5, that would translate to something different in a minor key. That would be the 3-6-7. So it's harder to compare or do an analysis like this when you have to translate between major and minor keys. So again, the way to simplify this is that no matter if it's a major or minor key, we're only going to start counting from the tonic major, and you'll see that this makes things easier. For example, the 6 minus chord is always going to be the relative minor chord in the major key, and it's going to be the first chord in the minor key, but we're not going to call it 1. We're just going to keep calling it 6 minus. Okay, cool. So the other thing, and again, I'll explain some more of this, and it'll become more apparent as we go along. Cool. The other thing is, in terms of progression structure, like numbers of bars and numbers of chords, what can we find here? First, these are the number of bars in each progression. And if we sort by smallest to largest, so actually, like this, that's fine. We will see that predominantly, TimeCop1983, his chord progressions are made up of 4 bars, at least in this analysis or in this sample, and only 2 tracks out of the 12 have an 8-bar progression. So he tends to favor very strongly only using one chord progression in his tracks that's comprised of 4 bars, okay? So one chord progression of 4 bars. But then what can we find relating to the number of chords, okay? And this is what I'm going to show you next. So here we have 1, 2, this is 4 chords. Here, this is 3 chords. The 165, here we have 3 chords. Here, 3 chords. Here, 3 chords. Here, 2 chords. 4 chords. 3 chords. 3 chords. 3 chords. 3 chords. Here's 1, 2, 3, 4 chords. If we sort by number of chords, we will see that most of his progressions are made up of 3 chords. So if we have a 4-bar progression but only 3 chords, it means that we repeat one of the chords somewhere, right? At the beginning, at the end, or in the middle. So this is also very interesting. And he has just roughly what, like, I don't know, 20% of the progressions include 4 chords, and just a very tiny percent, or just one track has 2 chords. Okay, so this is interesting. So 4 bars and typically 3 chords is what he tends to favor. And again, if you're trying to make synthwave, if you're a beginner, what this tells us is that if a successful producer, a legendary producer such as TimeCop1983 has created so many tracks that are comprised of 1 chord progression with 3 chords at the most, then we don't need to overcomplicate ourselves and try to create 3 chord progressions for 1 track and use a ton of chords. Simple stuff like 3 chords, 4-bar progressions, the same chord progression throughout the track is gonna work. Learn to master that before you get onto more complex things. Remember, the crawl, walk, run principle. Let's not try to get ahead of ourselves. Cool. So here we're really getting a deeper understanding into some of the musical components of TimeCop's music, which is pretty cool. All right, now let's talk about cadences, displaced cadences, and chord leading, which is some of the stuff that I've been showing you over the past couple of weeks. And before I get here and take a sip of water, let me see if there are any questions in the chat. Yeah, welcome to the Alonso Synthwave TV show, for sure. Hey Mick, Burnt, hey guys, Synthwave Dojo members in the house, represent. Thank you very much for being here. Yeah, the Nashville number system was very popular in Nashville, and it is very easy to use or simplifies things. So instead of saying this is in the key of C major or A minor or D major, you simply use the number system. So no matter what key is, when you have a lead sheet that you use, that the Nashville players use for recording and playing, you just translate in your head whether it's C major, D major, it doesn't matter because you know all the chords. So you don't have to create a new lead sheet. So it's a way, it's similar to Roman numerals, not exactly the same, but it's the same principle that you normalize, right? And you use a different frame of reference to make things easier for you. Cool. Alrighty. Cadences, displaced cadences, and chord leading. Before we get to this, let me actually play some of these progressions, just to get a feel for how they sound. Let me start with this one. And I'm gonna play them all in the key of C major to make things easier for myself, because yeah, I'm kind of lazy like that. So this one, 1, 2 minor, 3 minor, 4, is a simple C, D minor, 3, E minor, and F major, like this. This one has a nice ascending escalator effect to it. It's continuously rising, and the same thing with the bass line. So it gives us that feel of going somewhere, then we come back down, and then rise again, continuously throughout the track. So it's pretty cool. Let's play this one. So this one would be C major, D minor, F major, E minor, then C major, D minor, and A minor. Let's take a listen. Back to C major. A minor. Oops. Cool. The next one, 1651, that's C major, A minor, G major, and C major. Sounds like this. Pretty familiar chord progression. Pretty stable. Next one, 4/4, 2 2 minus, that's F major, F major, D minor, D minor. Sounds like this. Next one, 4/5/6/1. This is F major, G major, A minor, and C major. Sounds like this. Again, G, A minor, C. Cool. All of these three are the same, so I'm obviously gonna just play them once. This is F major, G major, A minor, and G major. Sounds like this. Notice how, well, I'll reserve that comment for later. Cool. Next up, 4/5, 6 minor, 6 minor, F major, G major, A minor, A minor. A minor. Back to F major, G major, A minor. Cool. Next up, 5/4, 6/4. G major, F major, A minor, F major. Sounds like this. Cool. This is the same progression. Now let's play the last one. A minor, G major, F major, G major. Sounds like this. And last chord. Cool. One thing we can note here is that he does have a tendency to start his progressions on the 4 chord, right? Whether it's a major or a minor progression. He seldomly starts on the 1 chord. Well, I would say seldomly, just 3 times out of the 12. And even when it's a minor progression, the 6th chord would be the 1 or the tonic chord. So 1/3 of the time he starts his progressions on the tonic of the key. So it's interesting that most of the time he's not starting on the tonic. And if you pay attention, you'll see that in a lot of his progressions, he actually doesn't use the major tonic or the minor tonic. And he tends to start on the 4 chord, which gives a feeling, the music a feeling of you're hitting the ground running. Like, it's not, if you start on the tonic major, for example, you start and it feels very stable like this, then you go somewhere else. But his progressions, if you start on the 4 or on the 5 like this, immediately you feel like you have to go forward. It's not a stable jumping off point of sorts. The same when you start with the 4, you start with the 5, even more so with the 5. You feel like you have to go forward, like it's not stable. And that feeling is what helps us continue to listen to a track with that feeling of going forward, even though it's just the one chord progression. The way that he creates his progression starting on the 4 or on the 5 gives us that feeling of continuously propelling us forward. Cool. That's also nice. And one thing that I forgot to do here is, let me sort by major or minor keys, and we will see that 6 out of the 12 are major keys and 6 out of the 12 are minor keys. So we can say that he has a 50-50 mix of major and minor. So when he's creating his music, it does seem that he's making a choice of saying, okay, this track is going to be a major track, and the next one I do most likely is going to be a minor track, and so on and so forth, right? So he keeps a balance between tracks in major keys and minor keys. So he's not really favoring one over the other. So he's trying to keep things balanced to a certain extent. All right. Cool. Now, cadences, displaced cadences, and chord leading. Let's see what we can find here. If you remember, we said that the cadences, I should have written this here somewhere. Perfect cadence is when we go from the 5 to the 1 and the progression. The plagal is when we do 4 to the 1. Imperfect or half is when we do, for example, 4 to 5. And the deceptive is when we do 5 and go to 6. So let's see what we can find. Perfect cadences. This one is a plagal cadence. We're going from the 4 to the 1, as you see here. Okay, so this is a plagal cadence. Now, perfect cadence, are there any 5 to 1? The only one that I can see is here. Any other perfect or plagal? 4 to 5, 5 to 4. So we don't have any other 4 to 1 and any other 5 to 1s. Okay. So let's see, do we have, so no other perfect, no other plagal. Imperfect, do we have any 4 to 5 movements? For example, here. 4 to 5 here. 4 is the last chord, then we're starting on a 5 chord. Oops. 4 to 5 here, here. Hold on. Here. Here, the last chord to the first chord. And also here. Okay. Do we have any deceptive cadences going from the 5 to the 6? We have that here. Five to the 6. We also have it here. Here, and here. Okay, so these others aren't using any kind of cadence. Now, when we look at this, and if you remember the conversation or the live stream about the cadences, for the most part, you would consider it a cadence if the perfect and the plagal, for sure, you have to do a 5 to 1 movement and a 4 to 1 movement. However, these others that I labeled here, for example, when you're doing a 5 to 4 to 5 movement and a 5 to 6, it's kind of debatable whether they are cadences or not, because the one chord is not here. So I wouldn't necessarily call them strictly cadences, except this one, right? But these others, what I can definitely see is that he really likes this movement or this progression from the 5 to the 6. He really likes it. He uses that a lot. And also from the, what was it, from the 4 to the 5? From the 4 to the 5, he also uses that a lot. So it's not necessarily, I wouldn't call these strictly cadences, except for the plagal and the perfect, But the others, it seems like he just likes that movement. So in terms of cadences, I would say not really, but he really favors going, or he really likes going from 5 to the 6 progression and from the 4 to the 5. So this also gives us clues into creating chord progressions that have a kind of TimeCop1983 feel to them. It's like finding the breadcrumbs and putting the pieces of the puzzle together. Okay, now displaced cadences, if you remember also that live stream, I talked that I discussed that we can construct or build a cadence, and then we can start it in a certain spot, and we would call that a displaced cadence, which is just kind of a coin that has, it's the same coin, but you just look at it from a different perspective. In this case, since we don't have strictly cadences beyond the plagal and the perfect, I wouldn't call any of these really displaced cadences. Okay, then this gets us into the topic of chord leading. So for now, I think we can safely say that TimeCop is not using the formal concept of cadences in his music, which is fine. If I believe, and I'm not incorrect, he's not a classically trained musician or instrumentalist. Mostly like others, he has learned a lot of stuff along the way, and he seems to have found certain things, certain combinations that he strongly favors, and he uses and reuses over and over again. For example, this same progression, he's using it across 3 different tracks in 3 different tempos, not too different, right? But what he does is he uses a different key every time, so it doesn't sound exactly like the other track with the same progression. But one of the cool things about doing Nashville number system analysis or Roman numeral analysis is that we can see that they are the same kind of, it's the same exact progression. So that's cool. Cool. All right. Next up, chord leading. So we can say it doesn't seem like he uses cadences at all, but what about chord leading? Could we have arrived at these chord progressions by using chord leading? I can't tell if TimeCop arrives at his chord progressions by using chord leading charts like the one that I showed you how to use or not. What we can try to deduct and analyze is, could we have come to the same conclusion or to the same chord progression by using chord leading charts? So saying chord leading charts are effective out there in the wild, and it's not merely a theoretical concept that academics use to describe music. So can this really work? Let's find out. Okay, this progression 1, 2, 3, 4, could we have arrived at this progression using chord leading? That's the question that I'm going to answer for each and every one of these progressions. Just taking this chart 1, 2, 3, 4, from the 1, I could go to any chord I want, so to the 2. The 2 can lead to the 3, yes. The 3 to the 4, yes. So this, we can arrive at this progression using chord leading charts. What about this other one? 1, 2, 4, 3, 1, 2, 6, 6. 1, 2, yes. From the 2 to the 4, yes. 4 to the 3, yes. And 3 to the 1, yes. So this first half, 1, 2, 4, 3, yes. We can come at this result or destination using chord leading charts. What about 1, 2, 6, 6? 1 could go to any chord. 2, this says, could go to the 4. 5, 4, or 3. This one says 2, 4, or 6. Okay, so yeah. Definitely, we could chord lead our way into this progression. What about the next one? 1, 6, 5, 1. I know that 1 to 6, yes. 6 to the 5, yes. And 5 to 1, yeah, that's a perfect cadence, so for sure. Next progression, 4 to the 2. This chord chart says 4 doesn't go to 2. This other one says it doesn't go to 2 either, right? Maybe there's another chord chart version that says so, but in this case, let's just call it a no. What about this one? 4, 5, 6, 1. I know right off the top of my head that 4 to the 5 is in the chord leading charts. 5 to the 6, yes, we can see it here. and 6 to the 1, yeah. 5 to 4, here it is, 4. 4 to 6, yeah. And 6 to 4, yeah. This one, 4 or 5, we know that yes. 5 to the 6, yes. 6 to 5, yes. This is the same progression, 3 times in a row. 4 to 5, yes. 5 to 6, yes. 5 to 4, yeah. 4 to 6, yes. And where was I? 5 to 4, 4 to 6, and 6 to 4. 6 to 4, yes. Now the last one, 6 to 5, yeah. 5 to 4, 5 to 4, yes. 4 to 5, yes. Okay, cool. So the question, does he use chord leading charts? I don't know. But what I can tell you, for 11 out of his 12 tracks that I analyzed, you could create a similar chord progression. Let me write this down before I forget. Using chord leading charts. So this helps us become aware, or confirms that chord leading charts are useful, and out there in the wild, if you use them in your productions, you can get great results or come to chord progressions that other people are using out there. So it's not only an academic tool or a theoretical exercise. Chord leading charts can help us make great music that other successful producers are already making. Cool. And again, I don't know if he uses these tools or not, but we could come to the same end result by using them. And the note that I made here is that the 1, 4, 5, 6 are the chords that I call the golden chords. In a major key, for example, in C major, those would be C major, F major, G major, and A minor. With the 1, 4, 5, you can harmonize any melody in any major key. So with only those 3 chords, you could harmonize any melody that you can come up with in a major key. Okay? And the 6th chord is as it is the tonic of a minor key. You can it also helps to harmonize almost any melody that you want. So the 1, 4, 5, and 6 chords, I call them the golden chords, because beyond synthwave, you can analyze classic, timeless songs in pop, rock, and a lot of other genres. You will see that time and time again, chord progressions in those great songs that we know and love are made with the 1, 4, 5, and 6 chords, and all the possible combinations thereof that you can come up. Not necessarily you always have to use the 4 chords in a progression. You could only use 3, you could only use 2, you can use them all 4, but practically any combination of these 4 chords that you come up with is gonna sound fine, because again, they chord lead one into the other in any combination. So like I'm gonna play here, let's say F to C to G to A. It sounds good. If I were to throw in there D minor and E minor, things may not go as musically like that. So again, the golden chords, as I call them, are the 1, 4, 5, 6, and combinations of these will get you very musical results quickly. And that's one of the things that you observe here, is that most of his progressions are made up with the golden chords. This one, this one, this one, this one, all of them except, I'm gonna mark them in red. This and let's say these 2. So 9 progressions out of the 12 are made strictly or purely from the golden chords. So that's also another way to simplify your chord progressions even further, is don't bother and just use the 1, 4, 5, 6 in any combinations, 2 of them, 3 of them, or the 4 of them, and you'll come up with a great sounding result. Quick and dirty way to do this, folks. Very cool. there's a question from Wolf's Den. He says, on the songs in minor keys, I used the major chord chart, not a minor chord chart. And the reason I did this is because I'm using the Nashville number system. So remember that I said that when I would look at a minor chord progression or in a minor key, by using this number system, I wouldn't restart the count. So the minor tonic, it's not considered as the 1 here. It's always going to be the 6 minus. Okay, so we're kind of normalizing and looking at the progression always from the point of view of the major key. So having said that, what that allows me to do is to then only use the major versions of the chord leading charts, because essentially they are the same, okay? But if I had called or named the chords or restarted the count in a minor key by calling them the 1, 2, 3, etc., I would have had to use the minor chord leading chart version. So using this Nashville number system, analyzing only from the perspective of a major key, allows me to even simplify further and only use the major chord leading chart version. Because on both leading charts, you will see that the major tonic or the minor tonic point to the same kind of chords. So this is just a way of simplifying all that. But it's all the same if we look at it from the perspective of a major key. Hope that I didn't confuse you further, but again, it's just a way of simplifying things and really calling a chord only one thing, as opposed to giving it, for example, C major, it's the 1 chord in C major, but it's the 3 chord in A minor. So we don't have to make that mental translation. We're only going to call it the 1 chord because we're looking at it from the point of view of the major key. Okay, cool. Next up, so definitely we can see that, yes, using chord leading can get us these chord progressions, which is very cool. Again, music theory applied out there in the wild works very well. Awesome. Let me see if there was anything else that I wanted to cover. So, all in all, what are some of the learnings of analyzing these 10 chord progressions? Again, we see that there's a great mix of major and minor keys. He tends to favor slightly D minor, well, D, E, and C in their major and minor variants with the flats or the F sharps. Cool. He tends to favor very strongly only one progression in his tracks, typically a 4-bar progression, where most of the time he uses 3 chords in his 4-bar progression, so he has to repeat the chord somewhere. For example, here, he's repeating the 2nd and the 4th. Here, he's repeating the 2nd and the 4th, but it's a different arrangement. Here, he's repeating the last chord twice. I don't see here him repeating the first chord twice like in the front like this. So he typically starts on the 4th chord. That's another thing that we mentioned. Cadences, it doesn't seem that he's using cadences or displaced cadences and chord leading. It seems that we can arrive at similar results using the chord leading charts. Cool. So this really gives us an insight into the music of TimeCop1983. So 2 things that I want to mention. If you're a TimeCop1983 fan, then that's great. He's one of the legendary synthwave producers. And if you wanted to make music that sounds like his, using this analysis, this tools, this techniques is going to help you get in that ballpark, right? If you were to use, for example, a chord progression that we don't see here, like 3 to 2 to 6 to 3, that wouldn't sound a lot like TimeCop1983. So you would be kind of on the wrong path to getting that kind of dream wave sound. So that's one thing. If you want to produce a similar kind of sound as TimeCop, then use these tools. But on the other hand, if maybe TimeCop is not one of your favorite producers, but even still, as you're developing your synthwave skills, as if you're a beginner especially, you can use and clone and reverse engineer and apply all of these techniques. It doesn't matter if you want to try to sound like TimeCop1983 or not. You can use them to your advantage to develop your skills of creating great chord progressions. You can, for example, just take the same parameters. You can create a track at 90 BPM, just change the key, let's say D major, and use this same chord progression and create a practice track or a main stack. This is great for practicing and for getting under your fingers how to make music that sounds correct or appropriate in a synthwave kind of way. Because the one thing that I don't want to happen to you, especially if you're a beginner, is that you start making music and that sounds like something completely different and not synthwave. And I know that everyone has their own definition of what synthwave is, whether Dance with the Dead is the thing that you like the most, or whether it's the Midnight or TimeCop. In any case, copying, reapplying, reverse engineering, and using this for practice and for your real tracks is really gonna help develop your ears and your fingers to be able to put things together that sound appropriate in a synthwave context easier and faster than if you were trying to figure this out all on your own. So if TimeCop1983 is not your cup of tea, cool. Do this same thing with the Midnight, if that's what you like, or with, whom else comes to mind, FM84, or with Miami Nights 1984. Do the same kind of analysis and do it for 5 different producers or 6 different producers, analyze 100 tracks and see then what you can find from doing this kind of work and applying it to your own training and development of skills. This is very, very cool stuff, guys. Let me see if there was anything else that I wanted to cover today. Definitely use all of this to create your main stacks so they sound appropriate in a synthwave context. Remember, the main stack is an 8-bar loop that you use to start your tracks with, consisting of bass, drums, bass, a melodic element, a pad, an arpeggio, and chords. That's the stack. Use this to create practice stacks, or real stacks, if you will. Like I mentioned, learn how to make this kind of analysis on your own. The tricky thing that I didn't get into today is how can you listen to a track and figure out the key and the notes. I think I'll make a video about that some other time, but part of it is developing your ear to hear tones, for example, and being able to hum or kind of sing, even though you're not a singer. It doesn't matter. You could sing it at a let's say a lower range like this, or you hear this. This is too low for me. Getting this ability of playing a note and being able to hum it, right? Not sing it if you're not a singer. That's the way when you listen then to a track and the bass line goes, then you go, okay. So if I play those 3 notes, then you have to look at the key and some of the stuff that I will show you later or some other time. And that's the way that you can figure out. Typically, the bass notes will give you the tonic of the chords. And if you look at 3 chords, for example, that will also enable you to reverse engineer whether the key is major or minor and which key it is. So that's one of the skills you need to develop. But then again, the rest of this, figuring out the tempo, there's tempo calculators that you can fire up online or on your phone where you tap and it gives you the tempo. And it doesn't matter if it's 122 or 119, 120, that's fine. Major or minor takes a little bit of developing your ear to figure out if it's a major or minor, typically which chord you're favoring the most inside your progression. Counting bars and chords, that's just basic math, nothing really important or out of the ordinary about that. So try this out and let me know what skills you're missing or lacking before you can make this kind of analysis. But it's very important that you can do this, because I can't show you this kind of thing for all the producers out there. Like if you like what's his face, Calm Truce, and you like that, and you really want to go for that sound, you have to learn how to analyze his music and figure out all of these details so you can reapply them. Cool. That's all I had for today. I don't see any new questions coming in, so thank you very much, guys, for joining this live stream. I sincerely hope that you got a ton out of it. If you have any questions or comments, as always, just let me know. I'm available. I answer all my questions or comments on my YouTube videos. I will see you in the next one. You go and have a great rest of your day, and keep synthwaving.